It's Christmas Day in Timișoara, Romania. It's 27 degrees and snowing outside. People are celebrating in the streets, tanks are lined with beautiful ornaments, and you turn on the TV and are shocked to see that the country's leaders and his wife are dead against the wall of the courtyard. What happened here, and how did it get here so quickly, and most importantly, why? This is what happens when a dictator pushes its own citizens to their absolute limit. Before the Romanian Revolution had actually kicked off, there were several other Eastern Bloc countries that had already overthrown communist ideals. This was because they were given super strict rations, they had almost little to no wages, and just very little hope for a brighter future. Some of these included East Germany, there was Czechoslovakia, there was Hungary, and Poland. All of them have had enough, but Romania was next up. The Soviets' grasp was a little less than most Eastern Bloc countries. This was because Romania had kept good ties with the United States, but still operated similar to a puppet state under Nicolae Ceaușescu. So where they were at, this put Romania in a pretty sensitive spot politically, since that would risk the end of the Cold War as a whole. And what happened internally into the country was really up to its own citizens. In an effort to eliminate a huge pile of debt that Romania had accrued, during the 1970s, Nicolae Ceaușescu had cut a ton of government spending, which eventually spiraled down into an economic crisis. The only thing was that the citizens didn't even know that they were in an economic crisis because the government wouldn't even talk about it. Electricity would just go down daily, the food lines to go get your next meal would take up to hours, and people started connecting the dots, and eventually the anger within Romania started to boil over. One of the most notable early demonstrations was by a local priest by the name of Laszlo Tokes. I probably mispronounced that, so forgive me. He was a large voice in criticizing Ceaușescu and his apparent destruction of the Hungarian minority that was living within Romania at the time. In absolute anger, Elena, who was Ceaușescu's wife, called for the eviction of Laszlo from his living quarters within the Hungarian Reformed Church. When the officials arrived at Laszlo's home, they were met with all the parishioners from the church forming a human chain all around the church to block the militia from actually getting into his house. And then when the crowd refused to operate with the militia, they started to open fire, which signaled the beginning of the Romanian Revolution. People were absolutely furious at what Nicolae and Elena had just caused. And in order to defuse the situation, they held a mandatory rally to be held within Bucharest. A live broadcast was set up within Bucharest, and on the balcony, they had literal fake speakers playing chants and support for Nicolae and all the stuff that he had done. Most people were pulled out of their jobs and supports and were forced to actually attend the rally. With over 50,000 people in attendance, Ceaușescu started his address to the people. He went on to lie about absolutely everything about the country. He said that there was so much amazing construction and all these new schools that had just been built. And he bragged about how much richer life was for the Romanian people. Without much weight, a lot of the people within the crowd started chanting Timișoara, which was a callback to the tragedy that had happened the day before. And Ceaușescu, hearing this from the balcony, started to slowly falter on his words, and suddenly,
din București, considerând aceasta ca o
And now at this point, the entire country of Romania had just witnessed Ceaușescu and him miserably failing in his attempt to appease the entire population. After a bit of clashing back and forth with the police, the people trying to advance towards Ceaușescu were temporarily pushed back. Ceaușescu finished his address to the people that were within the square and on the live broadcast. But the people were super unsatisfied and started organizing into larger groups, calling for the downfall of Ceaușescu. Nicolae was furious that his attempts were in vain, and what happened next would be the biggest mistake of his entire life. So the only logical thing would be to assemble your private police force and the Romanian military to silence all protesters in the street. And on that day, several people were killed on public roads, and snipers along the rooftops picked off any of the hiding rebels. The streets were in utter chaos, with tanks evading protesters, people fighting back, and the bloodshed of innocent people. Despite the absolute hellscape and chaos that was occurring outside, Nicolae thought that he had made the right decision with using aggression to create peace. But of course, when anyone does this, it's just fighting fire with fire. December 22nd, thousands of workers, students, and government officials had left their posts and were headed towards the Central Committee building where Nicolae and Elena were hiding out. And standing in the way of the protesters and the Ceaușescus was the Romanian military. The militia protecting the building saw familiar faces that were within the crowd and knew that they couldn't open fire on the people that they had swore to protect. So the Romanian military swapped sides and stood with the people. Now there was nothing that Ceaușescu could do. With the entire nation against him, he called for a crisis meeting while people were trying to break in to the floor that they were located. And before the protesters could reach them, they had called an airlift helicopter to pick up Elena, Nicolae, and 4 Romanian officials from the rooftop. And as they all made their way up to the roof, they almost got stuck in an elevator, ending the chase right there. Thankfully, well, not thankfully, miraculously, the elevator started operating again, and they had made it to the helicopter, leaving with just a split second. Once they were there, Nicolae had demanded that they take the helicopter to a resort that he had in Sagov in order to gain more reinforcements for the absolute mess that was in Bucharest. Back in Bucharest, the people who had protested had established their own form of government called the National Salvation Front, run by Ion Iliescu. Iliescu was still part of the Communist Party, but he was still super critical of Nicolae, and he also wanted him to step down. Although not all the people really agreed with his plans to preserve communism, but for the time being, that was the leader that they needed. Back at Ceaușescu's resort, after they had landed the helicopter, he had just realized that there was almost no chance in getting reinforcements to aid them against these protests. So out of desperation, he started calling all of the surrounding counties and their militias so maybe one of them would help out, but no one again was willing to. So he made the plan to fly to one last resort in a city called Titu. And on their way to Titu, they received a radio broadcast from the Romanian military stating that any aircraft within the skies will be shot down. And now Romania was a no-fly zone. So, fearing for their lives, they landed near a road in Gaiești, dropping off Nicolae, Elena, and 2 bodyguards. So, through multiple cars that they had hitchhiked, they made their way to the town of Târgoviște in order to find some safety. They ended up stopping at an agricultural institution outside of the city, and when the director eventually found out that it was them, he locked them in a room to eventually wait for police to take them on trial. So they assembled a little makeshift courthouse, and in there, Nicolae and his wife were accused of genocide, attempting to destroy the entire economy, and trying to flee with 1 billion in offshore accounts.
Prin lipsă de căldură, prin lipsă de lumini. Dar cea mai odioasă crimă a fost crima de a îngătușa spiritul.
The trial lasted about 2 hours, and by the end of it, they had come to the decision to execute them by firing squad. Despite Ceaușescu laughing it off and trying to dispute it, calling it ridiculous, him and his wife were eventually tied up and led outside of the barracks to be executed. As Elena was screaming at the soldiers, Nicolae seemed to be pretty calm and uttered the first lines of the Internationale. Both of them were shot at 2:50 p.m. on December 25th, 1989. This marked the end of the communist regime within Romania. After both of them were executed, the hunt for loyalists connected to Ceaușescu's was still continuing, but the people were able to celebrate their Christmas without a leader, and the country moved closer to democracy. And if you enjoyed this video and you enjoy Romanian surplus, kind of like the parka that I have on right now, you can go to swisslink.com where we had completely revamped the entire website. We have a ton of Romanian surplus along with a ton of other countries that I haven't got to mention in this video. So if you wanted to collect those, we have stuff all the way from the 60s to modern day. And if you wanted to go check those out and explore, please go visit our website. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.